Welcome to Sabbath Collective, a community of people interested in celebrating the Sabbath and pursuing Yahweh through a Hebraic worldview of Scripture and our times. Tonight we're going to scratch the surface on flowing within the seasons of change. So before the invention, hey Nicole, good to see you, honey. So we got Taiwan, we got New York, we got Costa Rica. Good to see everyone. Before there was the invention of artificial light, it was actually the sun that said it's time to go to bed and it's time to wake up. Electricity gave humanity a kind of control over light and dark rhythms. And although historically a case is made that there was some cool enlightenment and art collaborations that happened in European coffee houses that were artificially lit at 2 a.m. in the morning, that changing of light and dark rhythms does not happen in a vacuum. It has an effect. In New York City, when I lived there, at midnight in January, you can have a craving, hop on a train to Chinatown, and get durian fruit, a fruit that only grows in tropical climates. Change. Women are encouraged to use birth control that limit their rhythmic monthly periods to 4 times a year because they're taught to look at their cycles as a curse. Another change. In Florida, where I live now, I see this all the time, and I just want to ask people about it. But the people here seem to want to change the season they're in so much that they have their air conditioning on freeze in the summer. So if it's 95 or 100 outside, their air conditioning feels like it's 60. Or in the winter, they'll have their heat on sauna, like 80. They're freezing all the time, instead of trying to just kind of modify a bit with heat and with the cold. They resist in Florida the natural seasons so much that it's the extreme opposition of what's naturally going on outside. And again, this doesn't happen in a vacuum. Instead of flowing with change that leads to transformation, we often alter or escape our changing seasons. In other words, we either change the season or we run from it. We escape from it in some way. We resist seasons of change as an inconvenient disruption, an economic hindrance, an emotionally intolerable shift. Rather than kind of flowing within the season of change, we have made it possible in our time to live disconnected with those seasons. Now, we know we do this physically, but we also do this spiritually and emotionally. So let me ask you this. Why do you think we resist these natural seasons of change? Why do we want to change the seasons of change? Why do we fight against the seasons of change so much? Let me see your thoughts with that. Hey, Rebecca, good to see you. Shabbat Shalom. Hey, Madeline, great to have you join us. Shabbat Shalom. Hey, Sissy. Good to have you too. So why do we resist the natural seasons of life, be that physical or emotional or spiritual? Why do we fight against the natural seasons of life? Hey, Aaron, good to see you. Shabbat Shalom. People resist change, Rebecca is saying, because they're afraid of it. Exactly. And what do you think they're afraid of with change? What do you think is the first thing that people fear when they think of a season of change in their life? A fear of mild discomfort. Right, a good one. People definitely fear discomfort. No question about it. So again, we resist these natural changes. Jim's saying the unknown. Absolutely, Jim, totally co-sign there. Change feels different, Nicole is saying. We are hesitant of the unknown, of what's on the other side. So Nicole co-signs with Jim there. Hey, Aaron, good to have you with us, though. Phoebe's saying afraid of what they can't control. Yes, right? Afraid of what you can't control is a good one. Um, so these are some things, and obviously there's even more things. People don't resist change, Peter Senge says. They resist being changed. People don't resist change. They resist being changed. Now, that's an interesting thought. I had to think about whether I co-signed with that or not when I was preparing this, but I get what he's saying. It's not so much the changing situations as we are resistant to any change in us. And again, why do we fear change in us? Madeline says the unknown, concur, good point, afraid of what they can't control. Yeah, so we're all kind of on the same page there. And do you think that we resist change in us because it's unknown, because we can't control it? Why do we fear change in us? It's true that when we experience some changes, we oftentimes feel grief, right? That's kind of a normal part of change. Babies hit milestones, right? And we just feel this kind of loss. They get up and walk, and we think, oh my gosh, they won't sit on the floor and go like this to me anymore. They eat solid foods, and oh my gosh, they won't just cry to be nursed anymore. Like all these changes happen in babies, and when they do, a lot of times parents feel a sense of loss. We move sometimes, we physically relocate, and we miss our homes and our friends sometimes. When we sense one season is ending and a new one beginning, we do not consider flowing with that change, but more often we resist the change. Phoebe is saying, I think it's also resist being changed because that is also giving up perceived control. Good point, Phoebe. Nicole, change requires work. Yes. Jim is saying we're creatures of habit. Yes, I agree. We love our habits, our routines. Again, Madeline is co-signing. Uh, what does that mean? I think we're fine with, I don't know what that means, Aaron. You're going to have to, oh, gradual change because it's less noticeable. Okay, abrupt change is harder. So gradual change, Aaron is saying, is less noticeable. Abrupt change is harder. Yeah, absolutely. So more often than not, we resist the change. But let me ask you this. How many of us have said, I should have ended it earlier? I stayed too long. And that can be in so many things. That season seemed predictable and safe, and you actually altered your perception so that you could stay in that season, even though you knew in your heart you shouldn't have. I remember a while back, yeah, it was a typo, I get that. I remember a while back I was talking to a woman who I'm going to call Lynette. That's not her real name, but she started a business with a lifelong good friend of hers. And Lynette invested all of her money that was left to her by her father, who had passed on and left her money, as well as her own savings. And she quit a very prestigious job that she worked very hard to get to start this new company. Now, she was the manager, the investor, the organizer, the marketer, and her friend was the kind of artistic talent. And her friend had this branding that was very specific. The company had this branding that was very, very specific to her friend's art. Lynette led a very busy life. If you've ever started a new business, it can be very stressful, very busy. But at the same time as she started a new business, she began to date a guy. Now, she started to see some red flags in the beginning, and she ignored them because she thought, well, the guy's really handsome and fun. And she felt this need for an escape in this season of work and of planning and of strategizing. She felt like she wanted a relief from the pressure. Slowly, conflict began to be stirred up between Lynette and her boo, and this relationship kind of spiraled into constant fighting, battling all the time. But she still stayed in that season. Then one day she comes home from work to find him gone, along with her lifelong business partner. They ran off together. Ultimately, she ended up losing her business without her business partner, and she couldn't replace her. And she lost all of her investment, and she lost her position in her job that she quit. She did not connect to flowing with the seasons of change. She resisted, even though her heart was saying, nah, there's something wrong here. There's something wrong with this guy. There's something not healthy in this relationship. Don't try to escape the pressure of starting a new business. Instead, maybe live a more balanced life, not an escapist life. She tried to escape instead of balancing. And I think you understand the difference between that. Immediately, we see another situation where someone wanted to hold on. Rebecca said, I came here for a good time, not to be attacked like, oh, I missed the joke. Rebecca's saying, Donna, why did you call me out? Okay, very funny. So immediately after Yeshua is resurrected, he encounters Miriam. And we see this really interesting text in John 20:16 through 17. We see Yeshua said to her, Miriam, turning, she cried out to him in Hebrew, Rabboni, that is teacher, stop holding on to me, Yeshua said to her. Stop holding on to me. So let's just take a look at this little quick story here. Yeshua appears in the garden, and the garden is a wink. Again, the principle of first mention, where do we first read about a garden? We first read about a garden in the creation story, right? The garden connects to life in a new world and a new way. So Yeshua runs into Mary, and she's so excited, but she wants the old way, the old world. But he says, don't cling on to me. Now, there are some thoughts and ideas as to why that was with him, why he didn't want it for him. He had not yet ascended to the Father, being that he was an offering, etc. But the real thing I want to look at here was her inclination, which is what's important for us to see. He recognized and saw her inclination was clinging on to him. And he said, don't touch me. Mary probably thought everything was going back to the way things were, and he discerned what was really going on with her, that she wanted to hold on and not let go. But that season was over. She would have to learn to flow with the season of change. So let me ask you this. Have you ever felt like you're out of sync with change that's happening? Maybe sometimes that's because your life seemed to be perfectly aligned with the former season that you are wanting to cling to. So sometimes we try to recreate those seasons that have passed. People do it all the time, right? They sort of live in another time, in another season. They do it, maybe they were a sports hero in high school or college, and they think they still are now. Maybe it was with a job that they had. Maybe it was an acting job and they loved it, and they can't seem to leave that season and go into a new season. Churches do it all the time. They get stuck in something that they think will work, and they will not leave. They will not flow with changing seasons. Families do it too. We have like maybe a nuclear family, and this is who we are. We're not going to change. And if someone maybe moves, or maybe someone gets married, or someone has a child or whatever, sometimes, unfortunately, families can be really resistant to allowing people in the family to grow and change, or to allow new additions to come into the family. And that's really sad, because I know what a blessing our new addition, Anita, is to our family. And to not have her now, it would be like there was a hole in my heart. So to change with change is really healthy and good. This is clinging to the past season that we're looking at here and not flowing with change. Now, here's another. Hey, Josh, great to see you, hon. Hope you're doing well. Randall says it's tempting to hold on to what has died. Yes, Randall, definitely. Absolutely. Things that we at one point were really good and worked so well, but now there's no life in them any longer. And we still want to hold on to that corpse. We still want to drag that corpse around. Nostalgia, Randall is saying, is one of future possibilities. Oh, can rob us of future possibilities. Absolutely, Randall. Jim says now Donna's dragging me. That's how God gets it sometimes, right? He just does it. He reads our mail. Sometimes we find ourselves in the space of in between. It's referred to by a lot of people as liminal space. Liminal space. Now, liminal is a cool word. Liminal is a Latin word a Latin root rather, limen, that means threshold. So that's why I have the picture here of the door. It's a threshold. So liminal space is that space in the doorway that you have to cross over. It means a liminal space is a crossing over where you have left something behind, yet you're not fully into the new space and you're kind of in this space referred to as liminal space. It's the threshold. It's a transition space. And oh, is the transition season tough for us sometimes, right? This might be the place that scares us the most because when we're talking about unpredictable, lack of control, this transition space, we don't even know where we're going, what it looks like yet. We kind of all are living in this transition space right now, right? We don't even know what that space looks like. We just know we're leaving one space and we're crossing over into another space. Aaron says, he reads our mail. Yeah, it's true. Co-sign on that. Again, not much ever maintains its current state or shape for very long. This is just a fact. Nothing really much maintains its current state or shape for very long. In fact, all nature cycles through seasons of change and transformation. They go through this effortlessly and naturally. Even when the alchemical process of that seems like a big deal, even sometimes when it looks destructive, it's not fought against in nature. Now, there's a really interesting story which probably many of you have seen. Maybe you've seen videos, but it's the caterpillar's metamorphosis from a tree-crawling 12-legged insect into this beautiful flying butterfly, right? And it's often used as a metaphor for transformation. However, while we may look at the videos of the cocoon from the outside, this transformation of what's going on inside is fairly intense behind the chrysalis walls. For a caterpillar to turn into a butterfly, listen to this, it digests itself. It digests its own self using enzymes triggered by its own hormones. Then, as it's digesting itself, the sleeping cells in its body began to grow into the new body parts of the future butterfly. Now, this change requires complete destruction of the old before the new replacement is seen. That's pretty intense. Metamorphosis isn't only about a physical transformation. Butterflies and caterpillars don't just look different from each other. They behave differently. One crawls on the tree, the other flies in the air. One eats leaves, the other solely feeds on nectar. Flowing with the changing seasons changes them. And that's a pretty incredible transformation. So we can experience transformation through flowing within the seasons of change. So I want to say that again so we can really kind of download this. We can experience transformation through flowing within the seasons of change. Now, as scary as that sounds, that this is exactly where we're at today, all of us. Okay? We are in the season of change. When we are in harmony with these rhythms, we begin to flow through life more naturally and transformation comes. And listen, we can feel secure within the rhythms of change. We actually can. Even when we're at that liminal space where we're crossing over, we still can feel secure within the rhythms of change. On the other hand, when we resist these natural rhythms and struggle against them, we diminish our own ability to flow naturally into that transformation. Genesis 8:22 says, so long as the earth exists, sowing time and harvest, cold and heat, summer and winter, and day and night will not cease. Oh, okay. So what does this say? As long as this thing is happening, there will be changes of seasons. There will be rhythms. There will be day and night. There will be tides. There will be seasons. I think it's probably a fair assessment to think of there being seasons of the soul. And we're going to take a brief look at nature's seasons and connect emotional elements to each one. And the way I'm going to describe these seasons that we're talking about, the 4 seasons that we experience on this earth, is rather how, instead of today and how we look at them, it's rather how ancient biblical people would have experienced the seasons. In other words, when the Bible was written, to the people it was written, what were they experiencing in Israel and other places? How did they define what happened in the 4 seasons? Okay? So that's how we're going to relate to them. So the first season that I want to talk about is spring. Now, Ryan says, truly I love change. It always brings something so much better. My seemingly craziest decisions always led to a better Ryan. Oh, that's good. Yeah, great, Ryan. Hey, Barika, good to see you. Marie Kondo, past seasons. That's so true, Barika, right? Madeline says sometimes those seasons of change can be painful. Absolutely. And in fact, many times they can be, right? So we're going to look at these 4 seasons, again, how ancient biblical humanity would have related to them in the Middle East. So spring is such a beautiful season. It has times of rain. There's so much color and life. Things begin to bloom and flourish, and there is elegant beauty all around. Hope for new life, right? It abounds. It could be starting a new job. It could be a new business venture. It could be a new relationship. It could be a new health paradigm where you say, I'm going to start this for my body because I want to be healthy in my body. It could be a new creative project. It could be a new relationship. It's opportunities that are usually coming from the planting of seeds now. Okay? Spring. It's a time of new, and it's a time of planting of seeds. When we connect to this season of spring from an ancient Hebraic perspective, this is the season of putting the seeds in the ground and praying for the rains. Because again, they didn't just turn on a faucet and there they could water, their crops. They were completely reliant on rain. Shamayim, which is the waters from heaven, Ma'im. So even the word itself suggests that the water of life comes from heaven. So without God's blessing, in other words, what they believed is they would die because they couldn't have crops. So again, there was these prayer for the rains at the time of the planting of the seeds in spring. So the emotional elements in spring are usually gratitude and planting and trust. Now, I'm going to post this on the members group for you guys so you can look at this if you want. Gratitude, planting, and trust in the time of spring. So if you see your season here, or you just came out of one of them, let me know. Let us know where you're at. The second season is summer. Summer. And summer is the time between sowing and reaping. It's the time between sowing and reaping. And that's an interesting time. So summer is this time of celebration. Now, you sowed in the spring. In ancient Israel, you sow in the spring and you reap in the fall. I know here it's a little bit different. Certainly Florida is a little bit different. But in Israel, you sow in the spring, you reap in the fall. So summertime is a time of celebration. You just got all the seeds in the earth, right? All you have to do at this point is you're plucking out little weeds, maybe taking care of little bugs, not by throwing poison on them, but maybe planting some natural other plants that would help to repel the bugs. You're just kind of overseeing generally and with ease the crops that you've planted, and you're praying for rain, okay? Now, this is the summer of life. We're not doing a lot of work in the summer of life. And that's also because it gets really hot and we get slower, right? The emotional elements of summer are passion, fun, and relaxation. Love those, all of them. Summer is a time of play, and it's a time of adventure. You remember when you were a kid what a summertime was? This is the season of summer that we're talking about. The next season is fall. And fall is where you reap. The things that you started in spring are coming in to fulfillment now at this point. Some of those things could end successfully. In other words, you've planted seeds that actually ended successfully. I'm gonna do that one more time, Madeline, for you. Here you go. Madeline said, "Could you please bring that picture back?" There you go. There's the picture. New York summers, unmatched. Ryan is saying, yeah. So again, this is some of these things end successfully. In other words, when we plant and then when we harvest in the time of fall, some of the things that we plant come to fruition. Some of those things, however, do not come to completion like you expected. In the fall of your life, you're working, you're harvesting. You need to also think about the things that have borne fruit like you hoped for and the things that did not. So the season of fall, when the Bible talks about fall time, it mentions concepts like assessment, learning, and harvesting. Assessment, learning, and harvesting. It's about reaping and all that encompasses that. Be grateful and celebrate for those things that have ended well and learn for those things that didn't. It's also in the fall a season of reality. And again, we're not talking about how we live today, but we're taking an ancient concept and applying it with how we live today. But in ancient times, if you didn't plant enough, if God didn't send enough rain, if someone got hurt or you lost a family member to somebody else who hired them away or whatever happened there, if you didn't harvest enough, so if you didn't plant enough and you didn't harvest enough, you would not have enough to eat in the wintertime. So when we're in the season of fall, it's really a reality check. Because there's nothing to hold us over. There's no stimulus package, right? There's nothing to hold us over, which is probably how we all are living right about now. I know I am. There's nothing there to hold us over. If you didn't have it in the storehouse, you're not eating, okay? And this is the season of fall. It's really a reality check of where you're at. And the last one is winter. And winter, as you know, I'm a fall man, Ryan says. Randall says he's spring. Oh, cool. Thank you for sharing that. Aaron says, I think that I'm stuck. I've been stuck in fall for years, scared to move to a new season. That's very interesting, Aaron, that you feel like you're stuck in fall for years. Yeah, the cool thing about the seasons too, well, I'll get into that in a little bit, but you can get unstuck fairly quick. Winter is a cold time. We tend to spend most of our time indoors. And so there's this sense of kind of hibernation, right? During winter. It's a season of reflection. And it's also a season of future planning, of family and community and of waiting. I would say that we just went through the season of winter in our quarantine time, very much so, where you're kind of closed off and closed in with just the people in your immediate nucleus, let's say. So, and again, you're waiting and you're trying to connect in ways that you can't connect when you can go outside. So you're trying to do it differently. The emotional elements of winter are nurturing, dreaming, and planning. Nurturing, dreaming, and planning. Rebecca says in between summer and fall. It's interesting. We're in so many seasons. Oh, maybe that's where I am, Aaron says. Yeah, it could be. Ecclesiastes 3:1, and we talked about Solomon before, and we talked about a lot of people feel like he wrote this book. Ecclesiastes 3:1, for everything there is a season, a right time for every intention under heaven. For everything there's a season, a right time for every intention under heaven. Now, here's the aha, and we really can connect with this and it can change things. We don't just endure a season or survive a season. We connect fully to the season. We live in the season and we learn in the season. And that's very important. We don't just put our head down and brace. We're not going through a hurricane here. These seasons are changes for good. There may be times when we find ourselves enjoying the summer. From sunrise to sunset, we just sense that we're living under God's smile. And we wish that we could continue swimming and napping under a tree. Then autumn comes, and it's time for work, harvesting and preparation with the intention of future sustenance. When autumn turns to winter, we may be tempted to believe that during these long nights and short days, we aren't accomplishing anything. We may feel a bit trapped or a bit unproductive. But in winter, we connect and we plan and we rest and we tap into, wait for it, patience and persistence. That's the work of winter. Then the spring, the warmth, the spark of new life. When we go outside and we don't need a parka anymore and we say, oh yeah, warm is coming. The strategies implemented in the spring about planting is what's important. It's thinking. Most seasons begin with an irritation or an inconvenience. And a lot of you said that here. Hey, Glenn, good to see you, honey. Shabbat shalom. Jim's saying I feel different aspects of my life in different seasons, not wholly in any season or another. Sure, yeah, I get that. I can be in a season in a day and in another season in another day and have some things. So these seasons aren't this sort of they're tactile, yes, and we experience them, yes, and they're real, but they also, even though they come, 4 of them a year, they also change, don't they? And again, seasons begin oftentimes with an irritation or an inconvenience, something like a pandemic or a loss of job or a new job or moving or political issues or injustice issues or a romantic breakup, disruptions. But listen, here's what you need to know. Every season has a purpose. It's very important for us to connect to. Every season has a purpose. Glendelise says, I've had so many seasons during this quarantine, right? For sure, I have too. And Phoebe's saying, winter for me here, go figure. It's only 100 degrees outside. That's funny, Phoebe. Rebecca says, whenever it's summer, I forget winter comes. Yes, and vice versa. I mean this literally. Yes, we do forget. We think it's forever, right? Every season has a purpose. Every season is good. Seasons are out of my control. Some seasons speed by and others literally drag. Daniel 2:20 to 21a says, blessed be the name of God from eternity past to eternity future, for wisdom and power are his alone. He brings the changes of seasons and times. It's he, so this is what we need to know, Aaron. It's he that brings the seasons of changes and times. We can cooperate with that, but it's up to him. We just need to cooperate. And listen, here's another big aha thing. All sunshine and no rain makes the desert. My favorite time of year is summer. I'm a summer person. But all sunshine and no rain makes a desert, right? The seasons all work together. You plant in one season, you harvest in another season, you rest in another season, you play in another season. We know this truth to be unchanging. There will always be change of the seasons. So if you want to hang on to something that's unchanging, hang on to the truth that there will always be a change of the seasons. Hey, Neats, good to see you, honey. Shabbat Shalom. Hey, Lahava. We're going to close this time with the lighting of the Shavuos candles. And traditionally, the mothers light the candles, which represent Sabbath light, is the symbol of joy, of peace, and of unity. Jim says, and nothing beats a summertime thunderstorm nap. Absolutely, I love that. Yep, no question. She then encircles the candles 3 times with her hands, which is just a tradition, a gesture that welcomes in the Sabbath. Blessed are you, Lord our God, our creator of the universe, author of our seasons. Create in us a desire to flow with the seasons of change. Nurture in us the strength and learning that comes through this challenge, and impart to us the joy that comes from seeing the glory of transformation. Amen. Shabbat Shalom.